Hello everyone, I'm Chris Kluwe and welcome to the Inverse Happy Hour. Today I will be reading a selection from my book Otaku, and I hope that you enjoy. Alright, so this starts out on Chapter 4. The chapter title is 5 Steaming Walks on a 4-Burner Stove. Kiro paces in the small lobby, heavily muscled arms bulging through a thin gray shirt, tight polymer shorts stopping just above his knees, outlining almost comically oversized thighs. He stands a solid half-meter taller than me, the top of my head not even reaching his acne-scarred chin, and he has a lot more of mom's coloring than I do. His petulant expression sours even further when he sees me step through the door, red-tinted hexagonal glasses riding up a pinched brow. "Hey, bro." "Sis." He tries to grunt the word, but it's still the awkwardly high pitch of my younger brother's voice, desperately trying to conceal his youthfulness. I keep my smile hidden. Revealing it would only make him angrier. "Was waiting for you at my portal." "Didn't want to talk. Can we go?" "Only if we talk along the way." "Let's get some noodles. I'm starving." "Whatever." Great. It's going to be one of those conversations. I tap a message to Sarah, let her know she can unlock the lobby. The door clicks and I pull it open, motioning with my arm. "Ladies first," I say, hoping he'll complete our ancient joke, lose some of his sulk. His mouth twists, and I'm suddenly afraid that he's in too deep, too caught up in himself, slave to the awkward hormones that plague every teenager, insecurities driving entirely too many into the arms of the bored shits. I remember being 17, the tugging surges of giddiness and depression hitting on a daily basis. What if he doesn't care about childhood memories anymore? Finally, the ghost of a grin works its way to his lips. "Age before beauty," he replies, and my heart sings to see the familiar presence of my laughing younger brother, instead of the permanently angry young man whose metamorphosis he seems dedicated to. We walk down the dingy hallway toward the lift bank in awkward silence, our footfalls slightly muted on the thinly carpeted floor. Hidden turrets filled with incapacitating gel track us from the ceiling, their jet-black domes disguised as cameras. Sarah knows that some of the people sending me threats over the socials would be more than happy to carry them out, and she's had to discourage fanatics before. Kiro has no idea that turrets exist, has never had to worry about some things I've had to worry about. Must be nice having a dick. "So what did you think about the encounter?" "Intense." His voice is low, distant. In-game isn't for everyone. He flinches, and I wince. Shaming him wasn't my intention. Hey, I wasn't knocking you." I try to keep my voice soothing. "It takes everybody time to adjust. It's nothing to worry about." "Didn't take you any time at all. I've seen the replays." Damn it. Of course he's seen the replays. Everyone's seen the replays of Ashura the Great, Ashura the Terrible. Every second of my life in Infinite Games saved a solid-state memory for future consumption. Constantly replayed late at night on highlight streams and broken down on after-action socials. I stabbed the old-fashioned analog control button for the lift with my finger. 34th floor utility room leading to the 33rd floor skyways. Taking the front door after an encounter like we just experienced wouldn't be wise. "Yeah, I picked it up quick, but I wasn't top tier right away. Even I had stuff to learn." "You killed a Gorger solo your first hour into in-game, sis." I looked up the records. It takes most people 3 weeks to prepare for a Gorger fight, and that's with a full group. He stares at his feet, arms sullenly folded across his chest. "Hell, you just soloed a dragon. That's never been done before, and all I could do was get melted by lava. Why did you even bring me along?" The lift continues dropping, small bumps and rattles following our descent. Maintenance is supposed to be annual, keep problems from building up. Last inspection date reads 5 years ago. "I brought you because we needed a support, and you're the only person I knew I could trust in-game. Sure, I finished the dragon alone, but I couldn't have gotten there without everyone else. You've seen the bounties on me, yeah? The ones from some of the other ladder players?" "Yeah." "Then you know why I can't just grab any rando off the net." I playfully punch his arm. "Besides, if you hadn't raised that barrier against the initial flame surge, we all would have wiped, and you called the encounter change. Give yourself some credit." He rubs his arm as if I actually hit him, and I try not to sigh at his petulance. "I guess. I still don't get why so many people hate you, Ash. What did you do to them?" This time I do sigh, frustrated. No matter how many times we have this conversation, we keep having it. "I didn't do anything to them, bro. I just happen to be better than they are at something they think is important, and I'm a girl. There are a lot of bored shits out there living shitty lives and blaming women's their only escape, same as it ever was." "I never see anything like that." "Yeah, well, maybe you don't want to look," I snap, the familiar anger rising. Kiro frowns and turns away, shoulders hunched. The lift judders to a halt, doors sliding open, the right one sticking halfway. I heave it the rest of the way to the side and enter a narrow hallway, half the overhead lights dead. Kiro slowly steps out beside me, still not talking. I lead us over to an unobtrusive door with no nameplate, and I tap in a 40-character code on the numpad lock. A flight of stairs takes us down to a tiny room, not much more than a closet, and I check the view screen showing the main corridor outside. I take a moment to gauge the mood of the crowd. The skyways are usually safe during the day, but not always. A month ago, a group of Hajj were lynched up in North Spire, anger over petro prices and fanatics flaring up again. Of course, the Hajj that got lynched had nothing to do with any of it, but they were wearing the wrong clothes at the wrong time. On the view screen, hundreds of people in cheaply printed clothes rub shoulders with each other, walking under a ceiling painted to look like a noonday sky, communication protocols and privacy filters floating over their heads. Most are wearing tinted glasses over darkened skin. AR, augmented reality lenses, synced to the local net. Those few too poor to afford them carry large tablets, which they occasionally hold up to scan for shop information or directions, computer camera eyes translating an invisible world. Several Shinji tourists in natural fabric outfits pass by in a rare bubble of seclusion, anti-crowd fields nudging away anyone who gets too close with a crackling hiss of static. Privacy masks cover their heads, presenting an alien stare to the outside world, faces with no features. The annexed island returning to isolation after the water wars and declining population saw them bloodily absorbed by Han. A gummy preacher scowls at them, the bright golden cross on his stained white robes glowing from incorporated light diodes, full 360 sensor halo ringing his temples, recording everything it can. AR emitters blaring the good word while his hands are busy shoving away through the crowds of people. His scowl deepens at the sight of a chattering group of Hajj, head coverings around their shoulders as legally required in public, but then an eddy in the flow of humanity pulls him around a corner. I take a closer look at the crowd surrounding Sarah's back door, scanning for threats. Most are dressed in standard Ditchtown fare. Multi-pocketed cargo pants or shorts, thin printed shirts designed to wick away sweat if their business carries them out into the relentless heat of the ocean surrounding us, ubiquitous tack boots shuffling across the linoleum floor. Some carry signs with my name, or pieces of memorabilia, desperately hoping for an autograph, chatting amongst themselves and trading replays of the encounter through their glasses. Others display the guild tags of other top-ladder gamers, jokingly trash-talking each other in AR space and commiserating over their shared bad luck. A constant thrum of conversation suffuses the air, like waves lapping against building foundations, and above it all, the small bulges of gummy surveillance spheres swivel silently in their shells. Good. No riots today. I slip outside and plunge into the torrent, heading away from the fan club, elbowing aside those in my way and getting elbowed in return. Kiro follows, head down, his solid bulk unfazed by the flow of humanity. A couple people give him disgusted looks, and I glare at them. I know why they look at him that way, recognizing the muscular build of a gamer, and I hate it. Not everyone's a fan of the game. A lot of people, especially here, view us as freaks, wasting our time in a make-believe world, unable to function in the shitty reality we're all forced to share. Wasting water and calories on unreality when every day's a struggle for survival under the gummy boot. Reflexes itch, demanding I wipe those judgmental sneers off their faces, but this is the real, not the game. I content myself with an extra vicious elbow into the side of one of them as we pass, aiming for his kidney. A gasp and stumble signifies my aim was true. It almost always is, and the cameras don't care about minor bodily harm, not in this pit. Hell, they only care about murder if it's someone important doing the dying. Finally, we reach Glassbridge, and the crowds thin out a bit. I pause, entranced as always by the sights. Glassbridge was one of the first skyways in Ditchtown, back when people realized the water wasn't going away, oceans inexorably rising no matter what last-ditch efforts they tried, and it was built for beauty in an increasingly ugly world. Crisscrossing steel beams hold an arched corridor of translucent panels, heavily reinforced polymer, extending from high-rise to the brown like a fairy tale construction. Below, murky blue ocean glitters in the afternoon sun, small whitecaps cresting with the wind and splashing against the submerged lower stories of every building. Gulls and terns swoop and soar around the bridge, driven away from the clear barrier by micropulse emitters. A winged shape dives into the water below, searching for food. Other megaspires, green vertical farms draping their sides, rise in the distance, more whitecaps dotting their bases. Skyways, ugly structures built for function and nothing else, stretch between them like steel spiderwebs. A dirty smudge on the horizon signals the retaining wall separating us from an enclave, gummy-operated drones keeping their particular dryland fantasies safe and secure. Above, one of the omnipresent net balloons hangs stationary against the puffy clouds, a rocket contrail slowly fading far behind it. Judging from the angle, probably a Han heavy lifter heading for one of their upper hemisphere orbitals. I wonder what this place looked like before the waters came. Did the people who lived here ever think they'd have to fight the planet itself? Will any of us ever get a chance to stop fighting and just breathe? The bird pops back up to the surface, gulping something down its throat in jerky motions. Suddenly, water boils beneath it, silvery flashes of scales and teeth, and it's gone. Tattered scraps of feathers float on the surface. Needlefish, great in a food printer, vicious in the wild. So, what's for lunch? Kiro's sullen voice breaks into my reverie, and I turn away from the view, wiping a hand across my brow. The downside of Glassbridge is amplification of the ever-present heat, especially on clear days. The climate control must be busted again. Johnny's. Ah, Johnny's is halfway into the brown. Why do we have to walk all the way over there? Super Noodle's way closer. Because Super Noodle's a shitty corp chain run by robots. I like getting my food from actual human beings, ones I can talk to. They try and hack my order. Besides, you haven't visited Johnny in a while. All right, and that is it. Thank you for listening along, and I hope you enjoyed the read.
I like the world you've created. It's feels real, feels very futury at the same time.
Thanks. Yeah, it's one of the big impetuses for me was I'm a huge fan of sci-fi that deals kind of with where our world is headed. And I remember
Mm.
the first time I read there's an author called Paolo Bagliucci, I believe is how you pronounce his name, and he wrote a book called The Wind-Up Girl. That was back
Nice.
in I think it was like 2008 or 2009, and it was set in I believe in Singapore, but even then kind of dealing with the idea of climate change and how it would physically reshape how cities are. And one of the ideas that I really liked from it was that as human beings, we tend to be very resilient. We don't like leaving places. So as the waters rise, we generally don't leave where we're at. We just try to work around it. So for something like Miami, I can see people trying to keep building and hanging on and finding a way to make it work. And I lived in Minnesota for about 6 years because I played for the Vikings
Yeah.
there. Their skyway system really kind of influenced a lot of what I wrote about in the book in terms of Ditchtown, because it's really its own ecosystem kind of within the buildings. Like you can walk from one side of the city to the other and never step outside because in the winter it just gets so cold. So I was thinking, in a
Wow.
summer place where it gets too hot and where there's water, there's no ground, you probably come up with something very similar. So it's kind of the same thing.
That's interesting. Um, for anyone who's just tuning in or caught half of the reading, a quick recap of what's going on here. My name is Jake from Inverse. This is Chris Kluwe, and we're doing Inverse Happy Hour, which is an Instagram live show where we talk to our favorite sci-fi authors. Chris just read from Otaku. Now we're going to talk a bit about the book, sci-fi in general. We do have one question about gaming,
Mhm.
which is, if you could live in any video game in real life, what would it be? I
That's a
think I
tough
might
one.
know the answer, but I want to hear it.
Well, so the thing is, most games are set up to be places of conflict because as gamers, we like fighting things, we like blowing things up.
Yeah.
Um, I think maybe Minecraft on building mode, so
Mm,
that way I don't have to worry about
that'd be
anyone
nice.
coming to my house.
Have you played any Animal Crossing? That's a pretty good one.
Ooh, yeah, I haven't played Animal Crossing, although from what I've seen from people on my stream, it looks like it's just kind of animal capitalism. So
Yeah,
I think we have enough of that in real life.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, down with Nook the Crook. That's a common sentiment.
I agree. Let me ask you a little bit about your writing process. How long did it take you to write this book, and how did you sort of approach writing your first novel?
So it took me about 5 years total, but only about actually like a year and a half of writing time because I started it back in I think 2012. Worked on it for about 6 or 7 months, and then just kind of hit a wall. I didn't know where I wanted it to go. So sometimes when I write, I'll plot everything out. But for this one, I just kind of started writing with no clear end goal in mind. And
Okay.
so I got about halfway through, and I was just like, well, shoot, I don't know what's going to happen. So I just stopped writing it for about 2.5 years. And
Wow.
then one day, just in the shower, had a shower thought like, oh, I know where I want the book to go. And then finished it up in another like 6, 7 months. So yeah, it was very much a work in progress for a long time.
Nice. Do you have any advice for people who might be in a similar position, trying to write that first book?
Yeah, so one of the big things is you have to actually finish your book. So and that's a very
Yeah.
frequent problem is that, people get halfway through and then it's like, crap, the initial excitement is worn off. I still have to keep going with the story. I still have to keep making it entertaining, but the end really isn't in sight yet. And so you just force yourself to put words down on the paper, get them out, finish that first draft, because once you're done with that first draft, then you can go back, start editing, start revising, you can clean things up, but it's super important to actually finish that first draft.
Yeah. It's so true. Um, what other sci-fi are you enjoying these days? Be it a book, a movie, a show, anything you're into right now?
Yeah, so I'm actually super fortunate that I get to review books for Lightspeed magazine, so I get a bunch of them sent to me.
Nice.
Yeah, one of the current ones that I really read one of the current ones I read that I really liked was the new William Gibson one, Agency. Like that
Mm,
one was just amazing. I'm a huge fan of his work, and it was like Otaku is almost kind of an homage to his style of of cyberpunk.
For sure.
But other than that, in terms of shows, my kids actually just watched Kipo and the Wonder Beasts. And that was a really cool show.
Oh.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It looks like it's done by the same animation team as Voltron, I think. But the music is amazing and the story is really cool. So highly recommend checking that out.
Cool. We have another question from the audience, which is, how does your competitive background in the NFL and also Warcraft influence the way you write?
Yeah, so that plays a big part in Otaku in that a lot of Ash's character, specifically in terms of like not giving up and just always wanting to fight forward, is taken from my own experiences of like, okay, I know what it takes to go through intense physical training to reach the highest peaks of what you desire to do. And, not just in the NFL, but also in gaming as well. And so I really tried to bring that across in that it's how do I want to put this? It's almost like an obsession, right? Like that's one of the reasons why the title of the book is Otaku, is that originally that was, it was a Japanese word that meant, like the rough translation is obsessive. And it was basically manga fans, anime fans, video game fans. It's since broadened to include other interests, but at the core of the idea is that you're so obsessed with something that you just can't help but do it. And when I was thinking about the book, my experiences with football, like I don't think a lot of football fans would consider themselves otaku, right? But think about all the sports stories where people are like, oh, that coach spent 18 hours at the facility. He's so dedicated. Or, that player has been working out for 12 days straight. It's like, you guys are just as obsessed as people who play video games or read manga, but you just have a different sphere of influence. So yeah, so I mean, everyone's got a hobby. Everyone geeks out about something. It's okay to have different hobbies. Like that was another thing I wanted to try to show.
Yeah, I mean, sports nerds just as big a thing as sci-fi nerds for sure.
Oh yeah. And what's funny is with with fantasy football, right? Fantasy sports, there's such a huge crossover between sports nerds and fantasy nerds. Like fantasy football's D&D with football players. Like
yeah,
it is.
Totally. We get a few questions about whether there's any like sci-fi anime in particular that you're into. I don't know if the show you just mentioned would qualify.
Yeah. So let's see. If we're talking about like older stuff, Trigun, obviously, like Trigun, Cowboy Bebop. Those are kind of the basics. I just watched a new one that came out this season on Hulu. It's called Id Invaded. I think I would qualify it as sci-fi. Not so much fantasy, but that one's really good. It's kind of a cross between like Sherlock Holmes, Inception, and Hannibal. Like that's the best way I can put it. Highly recommend checking out It Invaded if you have Hulu. Like that one's Invaded. And then let's see. While we're on the topic of anime, actually, one that's a lot more like just heartwarming and just fun to watch. It's called Bofuri. I didn't want to get hurt, so I maxed my defense, and that one's just funny. The main character is a total Mary Sue, but they lean into it so hard.
Oh wow!
and I mean, it's very self-aware. That one's fantastic. I highly recommend checking that one out.
I wanted to ask you. I think one word in your story that stuck out to me that I assume you invented is board shits.
Yes.
Which is like a smart term to sort of describe maybe a certain type of person. How would you define that?
So the people who are on like 4chan and 8chan that probably shouldn't be on 4chan and 8chan should find something else to do with their lives. And one thing that like I totally didn't intend at first, but then I kind of noticed after I said it out loud the first couple times is that bored shits is also the same as like bored people who are shits, right? It works on a couple levels. But no, it's definitely meant to evoke the image of kind of that message board troll who just has absolutely nothing better to do. And it's unfortunately a part of our reality. And I wish things were different, but until people understand that online is just as real as the physical world, then I mean we're probably not going to see much change.
Yeah, I think you're right. You may have already sort of answered this, but maybe you have a different answer, which is there any location right now in the world that you feel is closest to Ditchtown in your book?
Miami.
Just Miami today.
That's where it's set in. So like it's basically if you really want to depress yourself, go talk to like a federal risk assessor and ask them what's going to happen to Miami in like the next 15 to 20 years. Like
Yeah.
it's not good. that city is doomed.
Mm.
So yeah, we really do need to start addressing our issues with the climate because it's not stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. What I want to ask, what, as you know, someone who's played football and thinks a lot about the future, I think this comes up a lot, but like, what do you see the future of football in 100 years? Does it still exist? How has it changed?
I think at some point it will go fully virtual, like
Oh,
once
wow.
our technology gets to that spot. Because one of the other passages in Otaku actually briefly references that is that when once there was no actual physical risk to to the people doing
Yeah,
the activities, then it made it a lot easier to watch them. Because I mean, I don't know how much of your audience is aware, but like football is a very destructive sport to the people who play it. And it's not just the short-term injuries in terms of like broken bones and torn ligaments, stuff like that, but also CTE, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy. God, such a weird word. Anyways, it jacks your brain up. Like, because who knew slamming your head into another person's head for thousands of times is not good for your brain. But yeah, it's one of those things where before I don't think people truly understood the cost of the game. And I think we're reaching a point in our society where parents are choosing for their kids to do different things.
mm,
So, football enrollment is way down across the US. And I don't see that trend changing because you can't pad the inside of someone's skull. Like that's where those impacts are taking place.
right.
It's the bumping up against the inside of your skull. And like if you can't fix that, well, then you can't fix football. So yeah, I see virtual being the only way it survives.
Cool. Well, I think that's a pretty good note to leave on. I don't want to hold you for too long, and I just want to say thanks again for joining. For anyone who's just popped in, thanks for joining us too. This is Inverse Happy Hour. We've been talking to Chris Kluwe about his book Otaku and just life in general. And if you missed it, we'll put it on YouTube tomorrow, so you can check it out there. And if you don't follow Chris on Instagram, follow him, Chris Kluwe. And if you don't follow Inverse on Instagram. Thanks so much, Chris, and have a great night. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.